Come, Mike, be my friend. I feel like I want to begin with a little bit of preamble. First, seeking forgiveness. I didn't intend to talk about that. I want to talk about giving forgiveness. But since it was so prevalent in the meditation and the meditation chant, I guess I think I want to seek forgiveness from my friend Randall and Sally Searles, who were also a vital part of putting on last night. I mentioned other people, but they were vital. So, still not doing it right. Got to get it raised. I told you, Mike, be my friend. The other part of the preamble is this. I was wondering whether, as I prepared to do this, there would be an opportunity to practice forgiveness. And lo and behold, last Sunday, as I was on my way out of the service, I picked up a copy of the newest Interfaith Inspirer newsletter. And what should the cover article be but a reprint of a great article that Dave Bell did in 2014 on forgiveness. I mean, nothing like being upstage, for goodness sake. I can't improve on what he said, and my only hope is that for those of you who are more about auditory learning than visual learning, you'll find something of value in what I have to say, but I definitely recommend you get the newsletter. Plus, there's an interesting little article in there that about Heidi Kaminsky, who I'm citing as the editor of this, and I did the Community Member of the Month article about her, so I forgive you, Heidi, for upstaging me. Okay. Well, the place I wanted to start was at the beginning of a long journey about learning about forgiveness. I was raised as, well, let me start with this. To err is human, and to forgive is divine. Now, when I learned about that as a young Catholic boy raised in a parochial school for the first 12 years of my education, it came across kind of loud and clear that God forgives and we err, and we can try to be more godlike and find ways to forgive, but it's a destination that we might never reach. That was my take on what I was hearing. And it was reinforced because another thing they had us learn was one of the 7 words that Jesus said on the cross. And Anne Marie cited the one that I was thinking of: Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I mean, the man's dying on a cross and he's forgiving people. I can't possibly get there. I mean, how can I forgive like that? It was like an ultimate destination that I never imagined I would be able to fully reach, but it was worth trying, and I wanted to be a believer. I wanted to think I could do it better, but I think that whole orientation toward forgiveness kind of appeared in a publication by Guidepost that I read, 60 Days of Prayer, and one says, pray for God's help to release bitterness or anger you may be feeling toward others or even yourself. Ask him to help you heal your heart and forgive as he forgives. Again, a noble destination. I really, really would like to be able to accomplish that. But, you know, I think it wasn't really enough to aspire to be godlike. One of the greatest gifts of my journey about forgiveness was to get involved in Alcoholics Anonymous 32 years ago now. And in the first year, I think I remember hearing this fabulous phrase that just changed the way I viewed it. It was, resentment is allowing people to take up space in your head rent-free. What? I mean, really, they're cluttering my head because I won't forgive? And Dave cited in the article he wrote in 2014, a quote that I've heard more recently: resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. It was from Nelson Mandela. It's got the same theme. I mean, revenge hurts us. Holding on to it is just a tragedy. So There's other things he said in this article, in case you weren't persuaded earlier to read it. In A Course of Miracles, we are told forgiveness is our only function. The Course also says there is no sin. Hanging on to old wounds is practically the worst idea ever. Forgiveness, then, is something you do for yourself. It is never about the other. It is a tool to restore your peace, tranquility, and health. Again, that just reinforces my idea that there's two sides to this. I mean, one of it is aspiring to bring out the spirit within us and emulate God. The other is just don't carry this around. It's a huge burden. Get rid of it. As I was thinking about doing this, I think I've had the idea to do something about forgiveness for a long time, but Dave's talked about it many times, and I've learned so much from listening to him. I thought, I can't approach that. There's no point in even trying. He's doing such a great job with those messages. But I finally felt like maybe it was time that I put this together and talk about this contrasting view of forgiveness. And lo and behold, I was reading the Daily Word from Unity Church of Practical Christianity, and it had two readings, one in January and one in February. As I forgive, I make room for limitless good. As I look back upon my life, I realize how much holding on to resentments from past events and relationships blocks my peace in the present and may even hinder my growth in the future. Forgiveness is the key to my freedom. I think I heard that in some of the readings and meditation this morning. That was a January reading. On February 18th, they did another one. Peace fills my heart as I forgive. Unforgiveness is a mental and emotional barrier that blocks the flow of good in my life. When I hold unforgiving thoughts, I am the one who suffers. Oh, you got my attention now. I mean, really, get rid of it. There was one other reading I encountered. I'll get to that one in a moment, but I just wanted to say at some point, and I'm not quite sure where it fits, but I think that the trap of looking to forgive and being unable to do it is you somehow feel like the other person should deserve it. Like, I'll forgive them when they really sincerely come to me and apologize. Which reminds me, I was going to just mention in passing at the beginning in the preamble, I'm sure there are dozens, if not hundreds of people out there to whom I owe a debt and I should seek their forgiveness, and I think they're too numerous for me to find. I've done my best to do amends over the years, but I'm sure there's still some people out there who I'd like to forgive me, but this is again about being able to forgive. So anyway, I think the issue is really that if you keep holding on to it with the theory that I'll let it go, I'll do the forgiveness when they truly deserve it, when they make it evident that they're sorry for what they did, you're holding on to this stuff, and why? I mean, the burden is crippling. Anyway, I have my own journey into serious forgiveness that the article about Tyler Perry brought to light. He was asked in this article, it's in AARP, and I just typically read the AARP cover articles. I get it because I joined AARP so long ago, and forgive me, AARP, I don't think I've paid my dues in a while, but you keep sending me the magazine, so. Anyway, they ask him a question. Tell me about forgiving your father whom you support but don't spend time with. He said, what helped me to get to a place where I could forgive him for all the abuses is that I found his life story. It made me understand that we all arrive at a place from somewhere. His childhood was full of abuse. I had an opportunity to either carry that on into another generation or dig it up and cut it out at its root. The thing that allows you to get to the root, to really get down in there and pull that up, that's forgiveness. So a little bit about my own journey in forgiveness. I'm not sure quite how to say this. My father was a believer in discipline, and he was prone to spank me. As the eldest, I think I got more than my share. And by today's standards, it might be considered abuse. In the era in which a pretty old man now was getting this from my old man, it seemed pretty natural that and he was really good about explaining to me why I deserved it. I talked about that in another sermon I did on perfectionism. I think it planted the seeds really deeply. I know how to avoid this, just be perfect. But it definitely was corporal punishment, and there was always, I think, inside me a part that felt that I didn't deserve it. Anyway, I carried resentment about it. I carried it into my adolescence and on. I found we had political differences, and he was a staunch Republican. I was left of the Democrats, I think, ultimately, and it's like we could barely talk about politics without seething at each other. But I think near the time he died, I got to say I'm really disappointed that I couldn't achieve it in his lifetime. He died in 1997, and while we were better about expressing appreciation and love for each other before he died, I still hadn't forgiven him. And there have been so many times until comparatively recently that I thought I'd forgive him and tried to forgive him and believed that I'd forgiven him. But it took some therapists to help me to see that, first, I learned that probably what happened as a result of this corporal punishment, abuse, whatever you want to call it, in my youth, created a condition known as chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, which, if it's experienced early enough in your life, just shapes the way you view the world, the way you function in it. And it's interesting how I was at least 3 or 4 years into therapy before I was willing to sort of face it. I mean, she'd heard stories about my father. She heard me trying to continue to articulate that I wanted to forgive him. And it wasn't until I think she said, this is what this is. Here, read this book. You understand this. And the more I read it, the more I understood. It shaped the perfectionism. It shaped my sense of self. It shaped the sense that I was somehow defective. Maybe that's why I couldn't forgive the way the Christians recommended. I'm not worthy of being like God. I can't approach that. But what it came to help me realize is that, the other piece she gave me that was really important was, it's not just a choice between resentment or holding it and forgiveness. She said, the other thing you can do is just let it go. If you can't forgive, let it go. And that I've been working on forgiveness. I've been thinking, I'm doing this for myself. I got to get rid of this. Just let it go. You don't have to find that they're sorry and they wish you well and they wish they'd never done it to you. You just can say, I don't want to carry this anymore. And when I got to that place, I think I finally realized, yeah, I've carried this long enough. I think it was about 2017 or 18. He'd been dead for 20 years. I finally said, I can stop carrying this burden. And then a whole other thing opened up to me. And that's kind of what the Tyler Perry article mentions. I began to see the person he was. My sisters helped me with this and said, because, I would think I'd forgive him, but then there'd be some conversation about him and about the pleasant sides of him that both of my sisters experienced. And I see, you mean he did what? And finally they said, you're hanging on to something that happened years ago when he was a different person. We saw a different person as he aged. And I realized that I'd barricaded myself from seeing that, holding on to what I was holding on to. Anyway, I put myself in his shoes. I was his eldest born, and I was born about 9 months after he was married. And within 6 years, he had 3 other children. And that was back in an era which I'm sure many of you grew up in like I did, where the man was the breadwinner. So my mother stayed home with the kids, and my father was working. So he was out there working every day, and she was home, as I came to understand, identifying those of us who needed some discipline when he got home. I didn't see my mother's role in it. I thought she was a saint, but she was fingering me for these beatings. She was paying attention, saying, take care of him when you get home. And when I thought about it that way, it's like, man's working furiously to support what ultimately became 5 children and 4 within 6 years. And then coming home and having to be the disciplinarian. We need to talk in my bedroom. I'm taking off my So when I put myself in his shoes, it's like, wow, I don't know how differently I would have behaved. And I'm tired of lacking forgiveness. And I think it happened. It's gone now. I mean, I think I see the person he was, the person he was trying to be, the person who was making sacrifices to put all of his children through Catholic schools. And I love that I've forgiven him. And I love that I learned about that journey. It brings me back to the title of this. I looked it up again this morning, but it was something about 2 different views on forgiveness. I think they can be joined. I mean, especially since I came to this center for so long. The fact that it helps us to identify the divinity within ourselves. It isn't that big a stretch to forgive like God does. God is within us. So just open your heart and let it happen. Stop carrying it around. You know, there's a sub-theme in this that I didn't emphasize that much, but open to the goodness. If you're locked into the pain of what happened and you're holding those resentments, you're blocking the good from coming. You're just not seeing it, not appreciating it. You're stuck in the negative. And so, anyway, it felt like it was time to share that with you all. It's been an interesting journey. Like I said, it was 32 years I learned about the resentment piece and knew that I needed to do it because I didn't like people taking up space in my head rent-free. But it took a while to see that the 2 paths could converge, that aspiring to be godlike and forgive as Jesus did on the cross is reachable, is doable. And if you're not feeling like you can do it, then do it for yourself. Anyway, that's all I've got. Thanks.